Welcome back to another everyday value mechanic video. In today's video I will be replacing the clutch kit on this 2010 Ford Focus with 1.6 liter 16 valve SHDA petrol engine. The car itself doesn't have any major issues, but the clutch biting point has gotten quite high and the customer decided it's time to get it sorted before it causes any problems. I'll walk you through the full process step by step from removal to installation and share a few useful tips along the way. Customer has decided to supply his own parts, so before I lift the car up in the air, it's a good idea to get those parts out of the car and also find the locking wheel bolt. So once that is done, I secure the car on the ramp and lift it on the working level so I can proceed taking parts. The first part I'll be removing is this air intake pipe that goes from the air filter housing to the throttle body, and it's held in by Jubilee clips that is typically 7mm. This rubber band we're taking off that holds in the air filter housing in place and prevents it from rattling. This breather pipe from the rocker cover, and then what's left is just the grommets that holds the airbox in place. Then there's no bolts, just pull it apart and you can take it out. You can disconnect this breather from the other side, which I'm gonna do it later, but because they're always so brittle, I tend to go the safe way and disconnect welds from the rocker cover rather than from the airbox itself. But if you decide to do this way, you can do it this way. Next we proceed to disconnecting battery, taking cover off, and that is 10mm. Start with positive terminal as it's closer to us, and cover something so it doesn't spark while you're working there, just in case while the negative terminal is still connected to the battery. Disconnect all these wirings, tuck them aside so they were out of the way. Now we proceed to disconnect this air terminal. This was quite stiff, it's 10mm. And now also there's a bracket that also is the 10mm that holds the battery in place and prevents it from moving or jumping up and down. And now also the negative terminal itself, and that is also a 10mm. And all this wiring can come off. Now this front cover for the battery. Now we got access to another 10mm bolt for the battery bracket. Disconnect that one and the bracket can come out, and so does the battery. Now it's free to be removed. Now there's a 3 10mm bolts that holds the battery tray in place. Together still ECU attached to the battery tray, so I will not be disconnecting them and just pull them out and put it on the side as it is. The wire is split pretty long wire, so you can fold it and it's not going to be on your way while you're working. Some of these stood sticking out and these nuts, they're quite rusty. I decided to spray the WD-40 to help me to remove them just in case they seize or they snap. And proceed with these 4 13mm bolts. One of them fell down, I will get it later. Proceed with the rest of them. That's it. And now this battery tray bracket can come out. Then there's another 13mm air strap attached to the gearbox bracket. And this also can be tucked away. Now there's a gearbox breather. I'm also using a pig just to slide it off, and once it is off, just pull it up upwards, and that is all there is to it. While we're here, it's a good idea to unclip these clips for the gear selector cables, as we're gonna be removing them from down there, from the underneath the car, and sometimes you can't see what you're doing at the top, so now is a good time to disconnect them. Now I start proceeding to remove some starter bolts and the gearbox housing bolts, and this bolt's 13 mil. All of them is basically 13 mil, but this one also has a earth strap attached to it, so something to keep in mind. Now this bracket here we can remove, which was the 8 millimeters, and another bolts for the bell housing, gearbox bell housing, that is 13 millimeter. One is there, it's harder to see. So that's one removed. And this one here is quite hard was to get to it, as there's the gear selector cables on your way, but if you move them up and down, you can put the socket on and then just unscrew it, and the bolt coming off and the gear selector cables also is free together with the bracket. Now I disconnect the clutch fluid line by pulling out this clip. If you don't have replacement, don't lose it, and put the cover so it doesn't drip on your head while you're working underneath there. So that's mainly everything is done at the top. Now we can lift the car up and start taking wheels off, and here we can see the most famous Ford wheel studs or wheel nuts, that they are, these without the cups is 18 mil, and the one with the cup, this one is 19, or I don't know, some people even say 19 and a half. So here we can see 19 is too big, and this on this one is hard to put on, and then the locking wheel bolt itself is 19. Here you can see 18, and 18 fits like a glove. So if you're struggling, just take your time, and if yours is still new with the cups on it, just make sure you put your socket completely all the way on. Here you can see how much is chewed. Somebody tried to remove it before. Now I can proceed with the rest of the bolts, nuts to be removed, and the wheel can come off itself. But yeah, very bad design. I don't know whose idea was to create that sort of design, because if you're stuck on a road and you need to remove this, basically with the tools that the Ford give it to you, you can't do it. Same thing, we proceed on the other side. Now there's 13 mil for the driveshaft bolt. Here I'm trying to push it in to see if the driveshaft is not seized. We do that on both sides, basically again. Both sides has to come off driveshafts, so you just copy paste one side to other side. I knock them in just to make sure they're moving. I can proceed to take the under tray off. Typically on this Ford you're gonna see Torx T30, but here had some replacement bolts, and I use the Phillips screwdriver as well. But nonetheless, the under tray is off. Now there's 21 mil for this ball joint. Crack it open, and then if you have a ratchet spanner, you can use ratchet spanner and take it off completely. Turn it sideways so it gives you a little bit more space, and couple taps with the hammer, the ball joint should come free. There we go. Pull it down, but before you let it go, if you have, just put some cover to protect ball joint dust cover. Here I'm pushing the driveshaft out from the hub. That's one side out, and same thing, basically we copy paste to the other side. Here you can see brand new arm with the different size nut. That was 22, but nonetheless it's pretty much same procedure. Again, cover to protect it, and the driveshaft out. Now we can take this gear selector cable cover off. See, a couple of these clips is from the bottom and some of them from the top. One of the cables, this one here, you just press the centerpiece inward and then you can remove it, and then this upper one, to my understanding, typically they just come off easily, and the cup came off. It's been held in by, I don't know, super glue or something, so I'm just gonna glue it afterwards back together as it was. And then gear selector itself, you lift this fat part upwards, and you can disconnect it. If they're seized and you can't move it, you can use some maintenance spray or WD-40 to loosen up a bit, and then once that is done, then you can lift it up and pull the cables outwards. So here you can see it's free now, moving easily, and this is how you work. You lift it up and pull it towards yourself, and it comes out from the bracket. Once that's been done, now you can fold these cables upwards to get out of your way. Now we take this cover off. Not necessarily, if you don't want to do it, you don't need to do it, but I decided to do it to take it off because I'm gonna drain the gearbox oil out, and I didn't want to make a big mess and afterwards spending time cleaning it, because it's like, it has a lot of crevices where the oil can sit and stay there. So 19 mil for this drainage. I couldn't find any other drainages, so this will do just to drain oil, at least most of it out. Once all of it, well, not all of it, most of it is out, you just tight it, torque it, and clean it so it's clean. So that's oil is out. Now I can disconnect this reverse switch and the rest of its wiring from the gearbox bell housing, and again took it away. There's a couple more the starter motor bolts left, that is 13 mil. That's one remove, and the last one is at the top higher. You don't need to remove starter motor completely out, just remove those bolts. Even though if it's not sitting in its place, that's fine, just leave it there. And just use a pry bar to get the drive shaft out. Sometimes they are quite sticky, so whatever you do, be careful without breaking the gearbox itself. Now there's bracket for the other side, drive shaft, the center bearing. So prior we're removing drive shaft, we have to remove this bracket, and these typical comes pretty easy out without any special tools. They just like that coming out. I have never ever seen these drive shafts to get seized. Then there's 4 bolts left. One here, you can't really see it. I'll show you here for the gearbox. This one here, and all of them is 13 millimeters. So if you have a spanner, you can use spanner to open it. If you have extension, you can use extension and the ratchet and go underneath the catalytic converter. There's enough space to do it. Now I'll show you in a bit. So I crack all these bolts loose, and then proceed with the electric ratchets to speed up the things. And here you can see where I put the extension and the 13 mil socket, an electric ratchet to remove this upper bolt. And here we can see bolt is removed, and same thing we proceed to rest of the bolts around the bell housing. No, not all of them, we always have to leave one of them as a last bolt prior removing the gearbox bell housing. So all of them are different sizes, just something to keep in mind where you're putting. Basically it was easy to remember because the longest one was the highest one, then the next in size was one lower below it, and then two smaller ones was at the very bottom of the bell housing. Now we have to remove this engine mount, again 13 mil, and then for the bushing was 15 mil. That's out of our way. Now use the cable tie to secure all these wirings and cables out of the way, as I'm going to be removing the gearbox, so it was out of our way and it was easier, more pleasant procedure to remove the gearbox. Now there's another 2 bolts left on the bell housing, both of them 13 mil, both same, and this 13 mil I'm gonna leave it as the last one just before removing the gearbox itself. Now we can lower the car a little bit lower, support the engine, as we're gonna be disconnecting the gearbox mount. Now I'm going up there to get access to the gearbox mount, so 18mm for the center bolt, and then this bracket can come off with the bush, and 3 15mm bolts for the gearbox mount bracket. And that's out of the way. I'll also be removing this inner wheel arch liner to give me more access and more space for hands and heads while we're gonna be removing this gearbox. Just fold it on the side, and if you have somebody to ask you to help you to take the gearbox, that is always a good idea. Or if you have another jack, you can use another jack to take it off, but 2 people is always much more easier. Here you can see I removed the last bolt, and that's gearbox is out of the way. Now we can proceed to remove this pressure plate. And here we can see that the clutch plate is worn out. They're meant to be like stripes that is not visible anymore, almost, and it's almost touching these rivets. So yeah, this clutch was definitely done its job, and it's on its last leg. So here you can see slightly, we can see some lines, but other than that was nothing left. So here I'm using the sandpaper to clean the surface of the flywheel. I don't know why, but somebody long time ago told me that it's gonna help for a new clutch to grip better. I really don't know if it does. It never gotten worse or anything like that. And then once that is done, you can clean with the clutch and brake cleaner the surface. And once that is done, we can proceed for installing the new clutch and the clutch pressure plate. There's no specific way how this clutch goes on, so just watch for the guide pins, and once the guide pins are aligned, then you can proceed and to torque the rest of the bolts. You can use the tools to align the centerpiece. I'm just using old school screwdriver, that's all. So it's 29 Newton meters for these 10mm clutch pressure plate bolts. So, and once that is done, and all the bolts are torqued to the 29 Newton meter spec, we can proceed to replace the release bearing that is held in place by 3 8mm bolts. The bearing was slight noisy, not very much, but nonetheless it comes in a kit as a new one. It's always a good idea to replace if the gearbox is off. Out goes the old one and in goes the new one. Nice and easy. And in the kit there was the new bolts for the pressure bearing, so we're gonna use them. I didn't have spec for it, so just good and tight is good enough. And the new bearing is dead quiet. So here my colleague left and I was on my own. I didn't want to wait for him, and I decided to leave the gearbox and fit it by myself. So just prepare the tools that you're going to be required, the bolt that needs securing, and try your best if you can, but it's never advised to do that, as it took me quite a while to do this, but I managed. But after that I was regretting because my arms was falling off. And also at the back I fitted another bolt to locate it. So the issue was why it was not going pretty easy in, it was because of the locating pins, as over time the water gets to them and moisture, and the holes for the guide pins got like swollen close, and that's why I struggle to put it on. Typically they go quite easy. I was expecting to go easy, but it didn't. Nonetheless, it's in and we can proceed to put everything back together. Here I'm showing the 2 bolts that I fitted in, just to locate it and keep it in place, and so it was straight. And once the gearbox is secured, we can now proceed to put all the bolts and all the parts back on their places. Starting with this gearbox bracket, the gearbox mount, the 18mm bolt. So even though I'm using the tool, I always recheck them by hand just to make sure they're tight. because the battery can be empty, but it's going to create noise like it's trying really hard, but actually there's going to be no torque. So always advise to recheck every bolt that you close with the gun. Recheck it manually with the hand tools, manual tools. So here I tied all the bolts for the bell housing around it. After that, you could do some of them later, but if you're going to put the driveshaft in, then the driveshaft is going to be on your way, and it's going to be a bit hard to do that. Now the engine mount can go back inside, so 313mm and 15mm, and now we can reinstall the driveshafts. It goes nice and easy in, same way as it went out. Just locate in the center of the in the gearbox, and just be careful not to damage the driveshaft seals, otherwise they're going to be leaking. And basically put everything back together, locate your ball joint and put the nut and tighten it. And then also we can put the driveshaft 13mm bolt. Secure a wheel from spinning, and the spec for this bolt is 45 Newton meters plus 90 degrees. So here you can see 45 Newton meters. That's step 1. And now 90 degrees is step 2. And that's done. And just copy paste everything to the other side. We put back this inner wheel arch liner, secure it in place with its Torx T30 bolts. Now we can put the other driveshaft back inside, and again just be careful not to damage the driveshaft seals in the gearbox by doing that. I put piece of wood and used the rubber mallet just to fit the driveshaft in the spot as this one was not want to locate itself. Pull the arm down and locate the ball joint, and the driveshaft bolt 45 Newton meters and 90 degrees. And it comes to 72 Newton meters in total, but always follow the spec the manufacturer's telling you. Now the driveshaft nut and the center bearing for the right driveshaft. The bracket itself with the two 13mm bolts. That's done. Now we can use. Now I'm using 8mm Allen key to open the filler hole for the gearbox oil. So this one was quite tight. Open this up and we put the gearbox oil back inside. I couldn't see anything wrong with the old gearbox oil, so we're just going to be reusing whatever came out of it. And here we can see this is the tool I've been using to fill the oil back inside. It's about 72 pounds, 73 pounds from the Amazon. I bought it and it's quite useful. Actually, we bought it just to do services on DSG gearboxes and Audis, as you meant to fill it from underneath it, and you need these adapters and everything and something to pump it up. But it's really good for the money. It's really good and it's definitely paid itself out. So the capacity for the gearbox is 2.3 liters, and as soon as the oil starts coming out from this filler neck, that's gonna be your level. And the oil spec for this gearbox is 75W90 synthetic oil. And now we can proceed to put rest of the bolts for the bell housing in. Also, if you haven't done it so far, I cut my cable ties to release all the cables and wirings. And I'll put back inside the starter motor bolts. There's one smaller bolt goes without the bracket, and this longer one goes through the bracket first for the wiring loom. We can connect the reverse switch. And tighten that longer 13mm bolt for the starter motor. Now we can put back cover for the gear selector cables. There's 4 8mm bolts for this. And now the gear selector cables, we start aligning them as well. This is quite tricky. Nonetheless, you just align, and then the bolts goes through these brackets, one on one side, the other one on the other side. Well, it's tricky because the gear selector cables trying to, well, they're not allowing you just to give you enough space to align it properly with the holes in the gearbox bell housing and through the engine, but with little persuasion it is possible to do it. So once the cables are in their places, also we can proceed to secure this smaller bracket with 8mm bolt, and the last starter motor bolt goes through the bell housing to the starter motor, 13mm, and also this bolt has a air strap attached to it, so well, it goes through the air strap, so pay attention, otherwise you're gonna have car that's acting weird if you not connect that air strap. Now it's a good time to connect back the hydraulic line into the new release bearing. There's a couple ways how you can bleed this clutch. If you have another person, that's probably the easiest way and maybe the best way, I really don't know. It's up to the person who prefers which way. But basically one person is pumping the clutch inside the car, and then once he got some kind of pressure, he holds the pedal down, and the person outside, he opens this white nipple to release the pressure, and once the pressure is out, it closes, and the person inside the car starts pumping again the pedal, and repeats this process till the pedal gets to the position where it feels nice and solid and feels like a clutch pedal is supposed to be. Now we can proceed to reinstalling the gear selector cables, and the process for that is, again, we lift that upper part of that mechanism upwards and push the gear selector cable in its place, and this occasion I put this bottom part inside here, it looks like that, into the gear selector cable. Just push it in and it clips, and there's like one slot where it just sits locating itself, so just pay attention to that slot, and that's why I was moving around to make sure that it fits in. And same thing with this other selector, just lift that bigger part upwards, slot it in its place, and then the bottom part just clips it on onto this ball joint. Now the smaller air strap, 13mm bolt, that's done. Here I can see it was not secured properly and just pushed it further in. The gearbox breather pipe also just slides in onto the breather and just clips onto this gearbox mounting. Easy peasy. Now I put in place all the pipes and wirings from the place I removed, and this bracket that holds them separately so they don't rub against each other. Now this battery tray bracket with the 4 13mm bolts. Once that is done, we can put this battery tray inside with the ECU on its attached on side of it, and 3 10mm bolts for this battery tray. Once that be done, the battery can go in its place, and the bracket, so that prevents it from moving. So first you do just to one side, Now we can put this cover because all the wiring goes outside of it, and once the cover's on, you don't have access to that right side nut to secure it in its place. And here you can see I have to lift it up, the bracket slightly upwards, so I can put the negative terminal wiring underneath it. But once the wire is underneath, you can secure the bracket with 10 millimeters, the negative terminal, tighten up, and also this edge strap that goes to the chassis, and all of them is 10 millimeters. Now we can locate the positive terminal. Just push it slightly down, take it off and put it on. Put the wiring where they're supposed to be and tighten the terminal itself, and we can now put the cover back on. Now I put the airbox without the breather pipe. It's much more easier, it goes inside, it just clips in into the rubber grommets. Connect this intake pipe, and now I can see the breather can go through here into the airbox. Just push fits, and then it goes to the rocker cover itself. It just slides on without any clips, without anything. And last but not least, this intake pipe from the air filter housing to the throttle body. So it just clips on and then secure with the Jubilee clip that are 7 millimeter. Now I can proceed with the under tray. Wheels on the both side. And that brings us to end of another everyday value mechanic video. Thank you a lot for watching. I really appreciate all the support. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a like and leave a comment below. It really helps the channel grow and keeps me motivated to make more step-by-step repair videos. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to catch all my future uploads. Your valued mechanic out.